Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this DAO1 product and presentation call. My name is Bruce Hughes. I'm part of the DAO1 advisory team, and I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes talking to you about how you can move towards a business model, a platform, products, and services that help you achieve three things: accumulation, automation, and acceleration of cash flow or wealth, specifically in the cryptocurrency space. So we're going to have a look at this together. And to start us off, I do want to take us back to cryptocurrencies that most of us have heard of. So if you're watching this as a recording or you're watching this live, let me know in the comment section on the chat group that you're watching this on. What are the two largest, biggest, most famous cryptocurrencies that most people have heard of? Let me know right now. I'm going to take us into a screen share because I can see most people are getting this right. The two oldest, or the two most famous, or the two most widely used are Bitcoin and Ethereum. And these are two types of cryptocurrencies, two types of technologies that actually achieve two totally different things. And the reason why we're starting here is we're going to have a look at their success, and then we're going to have a look at a blockchain, a cryptocurrency that takes all the learnings and all the rules and tokenomics and success that we see in those two coins and puts it into one platform, one project, one chain. And then I'm going to show you how you can accelerate, automate, and accumulate wealth using that blockchain technology. So let's start at Bitcoin, and let's unpack very quickly how it got to the value, how it grew in success, how it's managed to capture the hearts and the imagination of headlines all over the world. So to understand this, we need to understand what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is what we call a blockchain-based technology. I want you to imagine for a moment that a blockchain is a super highway that uses the internet to move value. And this highway is built block by block. Imagine 2,500, 3,000 years ago, the Roman Empire is expanding, and one of their expansion techniques is road building. It's where we get this phrase, all roads lead to Rome, because they had teams of engineers putting in infrastructure block by block to enable the Roman Empire to move value, move soldiers, trade, move gold, move wealth over large distances very quickly. And this is what Bitcoin has done. Bitcoin has built out a road, a highway, block by block, enabling people to move value to anywhere in the world in under 10 minutes, without any permission or middleman based inside of a banking environment. Now, the way that these blocks are built are through something called mining, meaning that you have people who own computer power all over the world, actual hardware, and when a block is laid, when a block of the road is created, Bitcoin as a digital currency is then shared amongst all of these miners. So picture these as the workers laying each paving block on the superhighway. Anyone involved in laying the block receives a portion of Bitcoin. And this is how Bitcoin has come into existence. In fact, this is how 19 million Bitcoin over 16 years has been released first to the mining community and then to the market. Now, the interesting thing is every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin being released back to the miners has decreased. So in the first 4-year period, miners were receiving 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, split to everybody. In the next 4-year period, it was only 25 Bitcoin split amongst everybody. In the next 4-year period, it was only 12.5 Bitcoin split amongst everybody. We call this system, we give it two names. One, we say that there is a fixed supply. The important thing about understanding a fixed supply, and in the Bitcoin's case of 21 million, is that if you have a fixed supply, but the demand increases, in other words, the number of miners mining Bitcoin increases, or the number of people out on markets wanting Bitcoin increases. In other words, when the demand increases, but the supply is decreasing, what is the net result in value? Let me know in the Q&A box if you're watching this live, if you're watching this as a recording, if someone shared it with you in a chat group, have the conversation with them. Basic math. If you have a fixed number, a fixed supply, 21 million, and that supply is halving every 4 years, but the demand, in other words, the number of miners mining it has increased, and the number of people on the market has increased. In other words, banks with Bitcoin ETFs, Fidelity, MicroStrategy, all of these big financial houses are wanting it. If the demand increases, the supply decreases, what does the value do? Well, we know what it's done. Over the last 16 years, the value of Bitcoin has moved from a couple cents to over $100,000. Let me ask the question. If you could go back in time to when Bitcoin was a couple of dollars, if you could go back to this period in history where it was a couple of dollars, and you now understood fixed supply, you understood mining, and you understood demand, would you jump in that time machine, go back and take advantage? I know I would. I would love a time machine like that. I don't have one, but I can identify other projects that are using fixed supply methods and mining in order to release that to the market. I want to identify projects like that. We're going to look at one in a moment. Let's change gears slightly and let's look at Ethereum, because that's Bitcoin at $140,000 at its highest today, trading at about 105, 110,000. Ethereum does something differently. It also builds blocks. It understands, just like the Romans did, that a road infrastructure is very important. But instead of using its infrastructure just to settle payments globally, like Bitcoin did, Ethereum said, what if we built out an entirely new internet? What if we used our blockchain as a highway and then we attached businesses to it? What if we built out websites? What if we built out exchanges? What if we built out trading platforms? What if we built out museums that all use this blockchain to move value? And that's exactly what Ethereum did. Ethereum launched what we call NFTs, or art pieces embedded in blockchain. They launched decentral exchanges where people could trade cryptocurrency and remove the middleman. People are using decentral exchanges to earn ROIs of like 40% a year. It's absolutely amazing because there's no fees being taken by middlemen. There's what we call dApps, or applications that are built using this blockchain. Now, because there's so many uses for Ethereum, because there are so many uses for Ethereum, because there's this new internet being built out, uses have caused an increase in users. And what do we learn from Bitcoin? When there's an increase in users, when there's an increase in what we call demand on something that is limited in supply, what do we see in its value? Do we see a movement upwards in its value? Do we see people wanting to use that infrastructure, use that blockchain, use that cryptocurrency? That's exactly what we've seen. And so over the last 7 years, we've seen Ethereum move from a couple cents to a couple dollars to over $4,000 because of its usability, how it's restructuring the internet. And so today, we're going to look at the Apresentação blockchain that does the exact same thing as Bitcoin. What Apresentação does is, instead of having 21 million coins, it has 2.1 billion. It has the same dynamics for how to release. In other words, a fixed supply is released to miners before it goes to the market. And that number halves every 125 million blocks. So the fixed supply dynamic is set in place. We're not experimenting with the rules. We're not playing with an idea. We're using a provable blueprint for Apresentação. But added to that is what we call utility. Apresentação is newer than Ethereum. Ethereum is 6-7 years old. It's slow. There's congestion. There's development issues. Apresentação is 6 months old. It's taken all the best of the updates that have happened in blockchain. And in only 6-7 months, we've seen over 300 projects already launch their own NFT marketplaces, launch their own decentral exchanges, launch their own dApps. And so we've seen the Apresentação coin move from 2.5 cents to $1.40, $1.20 at the moment. It's ranging. So how do you and I, knowing what we know about Bitcoin and Ethereum, how do we now position ourselves to grab hold of a coin that's built for utility, that has all the basic principles of fixed supply for us to take advantage of? How do we accumulate that without rushing to the market and buying at the wrong time, or selling at the wrong time, or accumulating through mistakes? And so today we're going to look at a platform called DAO1, and that platform sells a product which accumulates Apresentação on automation. In other words, you and I don't have to rush out there and figure out how to do it. And that automated accumulation accelerates how much value we can gather whilst the value is still low. So let's jump into this together. Out of 10, has this been helpful? 10 being, okay, I understand Bitcoin's value, I understand Ethereum's value, I understand how Apresentação is positioned to take advantage of that. Now I want to understand a product that can automate that process for me. Let's go look together. So share screen. dive straight into it. Let's have a look at a brief presentation, and then I am going to take you live onto the DAO1 platform. We're looking specifically at one product inside of the DAO1 ecosystem. I don't want us to get lost on the decentral exchange and the fees you can get there. I don't want us to get lost on the mining, because that product was sold for 6 months. It's been taken off the market. It'll be sold again at a later stage, so as not to congest or dilute the market. We're looking specifically at just one product right now. It is also important to understand that this call is for education purposes. So any numbers that we look at, any information we share, is not to say this is a financial product. It's not to say this is financial advice. We're looking at blockchain as a technology. We're looking at DAO1 as a technology platform. And we're looking at the trading bot as a contract, a smart contract that interacts with this platform and the Apresentação technology. Now, here's the reality. Anybody who wants to go and accumulate something and then sell it at a higher value later is trading. If you are buying watermelons at $1 from the farmer, and then accumulating 5, 10, 20 of those, going to a market and selling it for $10, that's trading. You're buying it low, you're selling it high. And most people who get into the cryptocurrency space do the opposite. The reality is most people will look at Bitcoin when the price is high. Most people will look at Ethereum when the price is high. Most people will look at Apresentação when the price is high, because that's when it's making headlines. But from a trading point of view, that's the worst time to buy something. You don't buy a property at its highest and then sell it when the price drops. You don't buy stocks at the highest and then sell them when the price drops. And the same is true for cryptocurrency. So we want to remove the emotion, we want to remove the hype, and we want to remove the headlines, and rather give people a product that automates decisions. In other words, there's a set of rules that are coded, and if you and I buy this product and load trade value into it, it will execute according to those rules. So we're looking at a trade bot today. It's part of the Rapid series, and it's AI-powered grid trading. In other words, it's going to buy when it's low, it's going to sell when it's high, and it's going to keep doing that inside of a certain grid, a certain price range. Very simply put, green dots, it's buying when a person is at a low value. Red dots, it's selling when it's at a high value. No headlines, no hype, no fear, no FOMO in its decision-making. So how does it work? Very, very simply, you can buy one of the 7 different bots that we have with 7 different price tags, starting from as low as $50, going all the way up to 50,000 USDT. You then load trade value into that, your trade amount, which is yours. You get that back, obviously, because it's your trade. And then that trade activates into a DEX pair, where it is buying and selling either Apresentação USDT or Apresentação Bitcoin, whatever the DEX pair is. And again, we're going to look at this together. I'm explaining very simply what it does technically. The good news is it does this on automatic. In other words, if you own it, you're automating the process to accumulate Apresentação, to accelerate the process of value for you. It performs everything on chain. That's just a fancy way of saying every person anywhere in the world can go and look at every transaction that is timestamped into the blockchain. So that removes human error, it removes manipulation, it removes corruption, it removes middleman fees. It does it all on chain, on the blockchain, for every person to see. The bot itself does expire. In other words, when it reaches a certain max performance target, if you load $100 and it trades to $200, it then expires and the product is no longer valid anymore. So you need to purchase another one. We'll have a look at how to take advantage of that now. We'll also have a look at what we call a trade bonus that currently exists, because there is a promotion that is running. You might be asking, where does it trade? It trades specifically on something called a decentral exchange. In other words, it is trading from the blockchain, from your wallet, from your trade pair, through a decentral exchange. This is important to understand, because decentral exchanges, they don't run order books, they don't have spreads, there's no central entity that is controlling the liquidity, that is trying to maybe fudge the trade numbers to look sexy or lucrative like some of the central exchanges do or central trading brokerages do. This is pure, honest, good news, bad news, dirty laundry, clean laundry. Everything can be seen inside of a decentral exchange. And that means there will be periods where it doesn't trade because the markets are not profitable, and there are periods where it does trade. And you can see in real time what that looks like. All peer-to-peer, absolutely no middlemen involved, and all happening in a way that you can see. You can track everything through something called an Explorer. So for the tech geeks out there, an Explorer is simply an open source accounting book that allows you to see contracts, allows you to see transactions, allows you to see executions of transactions, and you can track everything taking place on that Explorer. If you're wondering why we're focused on Apresentação, other than the obvious, the fact that it is a Web3 blockchain, the fact that it has a fixed supply, It's also because it's one of the fastest growing blockchains. Currently, it is winning massive awards globally, and it is what we call a general purpose layer 1 chain, meaning it's designed to do anything. You'll sometimes look at a project in crypto, or a friend might talk to you about it, and that project is very specific. It's out there to change the world in real estate. It's out there to change the world in trading. It's out there to change the world in voting. What we've done with Apresentação is built out an ecosystem that goes, this can do anything. And because it can do anything, we have multiple projects, over 300 already, that have built their own ecosystems on Apresentação. So this is definitely a one to watch. Now, you can run the numbers for yourself. You can go do the calculations. We're excited in how it's gone from 2.5 cents to over $1 already. We're looking forward to it moving up the ranks in crypto. It's currently sitting as a top 400 coin. So if we go into Apresentação, oh, nice drop today. So you just know that the chain bot is buying up this at the moment. But have a look here. It's got a really solid profile score of 92, very, very high, sitting at rank 475. That means it's in the 0.1% of all cryptocurrencies. We love this coin. It's why we want to accumulate it. So let's go on to very briefly what a trade bot looks like. So I'm going to come into the inventory section of the DAO1 dashboard. I'm going to select a Flux trade bot that was bought in this series. So in other words, with the promotions that currently exist, and we're going to have a look at it together. You can look at all the other different bots and the different pricing for yourself by going into the store. Again, it starts at $50, goes all the way up to $50,000. We're going to look at a $500 bot that gets loaded with $1,000 worth of trade value together. I'm going to show you two. I'm going to show you what we call the older series, the one that's been running since the 25th of July. I'm also going to show you one that I bought about 12 days ago. So let's look at the current series, the one I bought 12 days ago. So it's been trading for 12 days. It's been trading in what we would call a down market. So if we go, like we saw in the chart, it's been a downwards market. And so what it's been doing is it's been buying up Apresentação using USDT. So you can see I had 1,000 USDT load. That's how much I put into my trade bot. And because the price of Apresentação has been dropping, no headlines, no fear, no hype, it's been buying that Apresentação as it's been dropping in value. Why? You want to buy something when it's low, you want to sell it when it's high. So it's been taking the USDT and it's been buying up Apresentação. Look how much Apresentação it's been accumulating. There has been one or two spikes, so you can see that I have claimed some profits. In other words, it spiked up. I sold off a little bit of the Apresentação for a profit, and then it carried on accumulating Apresentação. Here's what I'm trusting, because I don't have to come and make the decisions. I'm trusting that when the market swings, in other words, when the demand, along with a fixed supply, causes an increase like we've seen, we saw it here, we saw it here, we saw it here. We're on a little bit of a downward, you can't even see it because we'd have to zoom in. On a little bit of a downward shift right now. Because of these spikes, obviously that Apresentação will then be sold at a higher value. Now, let's break down some of the numbers. I pay 500 USDT for my bot. That's the value of the product. I loaded with 1,000 USDT. That 1,000 USDT is my balance that trades in and out of Apresentação. As I'm clicking claim, that claim amount is coming to me. I can click claim to a maximum value of 1,000 USDT. In other words, it is counting down the maximum target I can achieve with this bot before the bot expires. Every time I click claim, it also unlocks a matching bonus. So when I look at the 7 USDT here, I actually received 3.2 USDT in profits, small profits. When I click claim, I got a matching bonus on that. So this is where we get the total from. Load plus how much it'll trade to, plus the matching bonus, which gives me total value back. All achievable and trackable over here. Now, if I go and look at a bot that's been running for a little bit longer, so the dashboard looks a little bit different because it didn't have this, this bonus claim attached to it. If I look at a bot that's been trading longer, I put in 1,000 USDT. It traded that up to over 16% profit in 25th of July, 25th of August to now 6 weeks. So 16% profit in 6 weeks. It's currently spent all its USDT buying up Apresentação, so it's locked into Apresentação. And right now, that Apresentação, because the price has dropped, is sitting at minus 221 from my original 1,000. So my $1,000 is down in value to like 778-ish. Plus, obviously, the profits I've already claimed. So 778 plus 161. I'm not going to click rebalance. I'm happy for it to sit in Apresentação because when the market swings, this value then gets sold at profits. This value then goes into the greens, into the positives, and my claim amount goes up. So it's very, very simple. I'm removing the fear. I'm removing the overcomplication. I'm removing all the analyses needed. I let the bot do its job on automation. Now, here's where it gets super exciting. You and I don't need any previous skill to be able to go into this. The contract, the code, is going to accumulate Apresentação when it's dropping in value. It's going to sell Apresentação when it rises in value. Every time you click claim, it's going to take that same Apertum that you've sold into a profit, so you now got USDT. It's going to buy some more Apertum off the market, put 70% in your pocket, put 30% out into the ecosystem, and you're going to get a matching on all that activity. That 30% drives and fuels the whole ecosystem. It's constantly putting buy pressure and market pressure and liquidity into the markets. It becomes a self-propelling marketplace. And you and I, as users of DAO1, benefit from that. We benefit from a coin that rises in value. We benefit from the number of transactions increasing on the blockchain. We benefit from rising liquidity. We benefit from fees earned on the decentralized exchange. It's a very big ecosystem running on automatic. Let me ask you this question before I start finishing off. And we are wrapping up in the next 2 minutes. If you had a way that you could accumulate something of value, completely automated, and that accumulation and automation allows you to shorten timelines from 6 years to 6 months, or from 20 years to 2 years, would it be worth looking at? We're in the biggest wealth transfer we've seen in our modern day history. We're also in the biggest technology transfer as the internet moves onto blockchain Web3. And we've got an opportunity right now to put this product, this platform, this system out into the market where every person can audit every piece of information through the Explorer on the blockchain, fully transparent, no middlemen needed. Here's the exciting bit. We have a business model built behind it that allows people to earn commissions if they opt into our active members program. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to spend time showing you, if you wish to join the active members program, how to not just benefit from the product to accumulate, accelerate, and automate, but how you can also become part of the 10 to 12% of our community who are going out there and actively marketing this through social media or through workshops or through courses, teaching people how to buy and leverage these products and services. I'm going to go through a business plan, a business model, and a commission plan to show you how you can automate, accelerate, and accumulate commissions alongside the Apertum that you're automating, accumulating, and accelerating through the products and services. So join me tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. CET. If you don't have a link for the call and you are brand new to this, ask for the link, join me tomorrow. I'm going to touch on the products again, and then I'm going to spend time showing you the business model. I want to thank you for your 30 minutes. I hope you got value out of this, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same link, same time for unpacking a business in a box with DAO1 and Apertum. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic Wednesday.